If you ever see a subway car marked H0LLOW, don't think, just run. Because once you step onto the last train to Hollow Station, you'll learn that some places don't just hide in darkness, they devour it. I'd always prided myself on a steady hand and a calm head, traits that earned me the night shift controller position in the city's labyrinthine subway network. But at 3:42 a.m. on March 3rd, I wasn't thinking about pride. I was thinking about the hairs standing up on the back of my neck as the radio crackled. "Control, this is track C7. I'm seeing a train on platform 13. No record, no schedule, no official origin." Platform 13. The name itself felt like a bad joke. I remembered the old decommissioned notice. Platform sealed since 1962, the year a derailment sent the train barreling off the curve, killing more than 40 people in a single explosive crash. They said the rubble was cleared, the tunnel bricked up, but in my ears, that radio call sounded like someone had pried open the graveyard of steel and ghosts to let something else loose again. My flashlight was a weak beam compared to the subterranean gloom as I descended the service staircase. Pipes overhead groaned under decades of rust, dripping thick, oily droplets onto cracked concrete. The walls were plastered with outdated safety posters. "Mind the gap, no trespassing, report suspicious activity," all yellowed edges and peeling corners, as if time itself was trying to crawl away from the station. Every step deeper felt like passing a threshold into another world. The hum of overhead lights faded into a low whining vibration in my skull. My heart drummed an offbeat rhythm as I emerged onto platform 13, which stretched into endless blackness. The air was colder, so cold I could see my breath crystallize before me. My radio squawked, but no one answered. Even the overhead intercom was dead silent. Then I saw it. A subway car sliding toward me on polished rails that gleamed like wet snakes. The car's headlight was an unnatural green, casting long, leaping shadows against the tunnel walls. No number, no line name, only one word in block letters on its front: H0LLOW. I should have triggered the emergency alarm and retreated. Instead, I found myself drawn forward. There was something mesmerizing in its slow, methodical approach, like watching a predator stalking its prey in ritual silence. My flashlight caught the car's side windows. Everything beyond the glass looked sterile and bright, too bright, as if someone had transplanted a fluorescent office into this tomb. Seats were empty, the floor spotless, yet inside, I heard breathing. Not mechanical. Breath. Slow, deliberate, and deeply human. Or what had once been. I jammed my palm against the car's door sensor. Silence. No hiss. No click. It was as if the car surveyed me and decided not to let me pass. I checked my watch. The hands had stopped at 3:43 a.m., as if time itself had been paused by the train's presence. A distant echo, a staccato clatter of metal shivered down the tunnel behind me. I spun, catching a glimpse of something enormous slithering along the ceiling. A mass of dark shapes, moving against gravity, leaving deep gouges in the concrete like talon scars. The train's green light flickered, then steadied again. I swallowed a scream. My training screamed at me to call backup. Instead, I whispered into the radio. "Control? I need immediate assistance on platform 13. The only answer was static, then a voice, male, cold as bayonets on march, cut through with the single word: H0LLOW. Then fainter, clatter, a man's scream, then the woman again, far away like thunder. "Don't go." The train's door finally slid open with a soft, pneumatic sigh, inviting me in. I felt an urgent pull, a gravity of pure dread. To stay was madness, to run seemed impossible. And in that moment, I realized that Platform 13 had never truly been abandoned, and that the things lingering beyond its shadows were waiting for someone to return. I took a single step forward.
I forced myself to stop staring at that train car, HOLLOW, etched in sickly green, and turned to face the platform itself. Every instinct screamed that I was trespassing into a place carved from nightmares, but the sound of my own breathing seemed too loud, echoing against the tunnel walls. My boots thudded on cracked tile as I approached the edge. Half a century of legend swirled around Platform 13. They said after the derailment, all operations shifted to the newer platforms, and this one was walled off. Maps faded it out, schedules ignored it, even the blueprints omitted it. Yet here I stood, tangled in its hum. The train's door remained open, an unspoken invitation. I flicked my flashlight onto its steps and saw that there were no handles, no internal controls. Sliding in required only the slightest lean. I hesitated. The air on the platform felt thick, like breathing through a damp blanket. Behind me, the tunnel receded into pitch black. Ahead, the train's fluorescence bathed the interior in a clinical glow. In the center of the car, a single seat faced forward on a raised platform, an oddity in an otherwise standard design. I steeled myself and climbed aboard. Instantly, the doors hissed shut and the car lurched into motion, taking me deeper into the abandoned depths than any active line ever ventured. Outside the windows, the tunnel was an indistinct blur, nothing like the gleaming tubes above ground. Here, the walls oozed moisture and rust. Oversized support beams twisted at impossible angles, and cables hung in coils like grotesque vines. Every jackhammer echo felt like a heartbeat, untethered from any body. Once the car reached a certain darkness, the lights flickered. For a moment, I glimpsed movement outside, inhuman silhouettes crouched on ledges, too swift to fully see. I slammed my flashlight beam into the void, but the shapes vanished, as if they'd never been. Fear clutched my gut. The seat on the raised platform beckoned, so I sat. My reflection stared back, pallid, wide-eyed, disbelieving. I wanted to turn around and leap off the train, but it was moving too fast. My radio buzzed in my pocket, someone trying to reach me. I ignored it, fingers trembling as I gripped the edge of the seat. Then, the lights snapped off completely, and the car was swallowed by darkness. My radio and flashlight both died. Silence enveloped me. No hum, no rattle, no wheels on rails. Just a flat, suffocating void. I closed my eyes and counted pulses, willing the world to return. When the lights flickered back, I nearly jumped out of my skin. The windows revealed not the tunnel, but a cavernous chamber. Arched stained glass windows lined the walls, fading colors of red and purple. Massive iron chandeliers hung overhead, each glowing with candles that burned green. The train was disembarked in what looked like a Gothic cathedral, not a subway line. The single seat was gone. An altar stood in its place, draped in a tapestry stitched with shifting patterns, veins of black roots twisting over ruby cloth. On the altar lay a tarnished conductor's cap and a cracked transit badge inscribed with my name and the date, March 3rd, 1962. My throat went dry. That date was when the derailment happened. My badge number had belonged to the final car. I staggered forward, nearly tripping over the rails that ended in rust-blossom spikes. A voice, soft, ancient, whispered in my ear. "Welcome, keeper of tracks. You have arrived." I spun around. No one stood behind me. The car was empty. But the chandeliers flickered again, and in each shard of stained glass I saw faces. The dead passengers of 1962, frozen in fearful poses as they stared at me. From somewhere deep in the cathedral, the organ began to play. a slow, mournful dirge that vibrated through the stone floor. My heart raced. I ducked back into the train, but the door was sealed. A panel slid open in the ceiling, revealing the vaulted roof above, but too high to reach. Below, the rails ended. I mashed the emergency brake, praying the car would jolt and break free. Instead, the brake handle came off in my hand. The car slid forward on its own accord, gliding off the concealed rails and lowering me to the stone floor with a metallic groan. I landed hard, scraping my palms. The organ swelled, and the altar tapestry rippled like a living thing. A low chanting began, soft at first, then rising in volume until it filled every corner. I staggered backward, realizing the walls were closing in. Moss and fungus crept across the stone in unnatural patterns, spelling words I couldn't read. My flashlight sputtered back to life, and I raised it, only to see the conductor's cap wobble on the altar as if someone had tipped it in greeting. The chanting crescendoed, then stopped abruptly. Silence. The stained glass windows dimmed, and the exit at the far end of the hall, hidden behind a fraying curtain of vines, opened slowly. A single beam of pale dawn light sliced into the darkness, illuminating a door carved with the same green HOLLOW letters I'd seen on the train. I bolted towards it, lungs burning, as the organ's last note echoed through the chamber. I reached the door and yanked it open, and tumbled into pitch-black oblivion.
I landed hard in the darkness, breath choked by the sudden drop. My flashlight lit up first, ragged shards of tunnel wall, slick with moisture. The train car's door slammed shut above me, sealing off the cathedral's exit. Panic set in, but there wasn't time to think. I flicked the beam around. The tunnel stretched ahead, arched and impossibly long, with dripping pipes overhead spitting rusty water. My boots squeaked on wet tile as I sprinted forward. Each step echoed, too loud, like footsteps were answering mine. Halfway down, I caught a glimpse, movement in the corner of my eye. My pulse spiked. I swung the light to the wall. Thousands of tiny scratches, claw marks, raked across concrete as if some creature had raced along it at full speed. They trailed off into blackness. I swallowed hard and pressed on. Radio clenched in my hand. Control? Do you read? Nothing but static hiss. My watch read 3:47 a.m., though time felt meaningless here. A distant rumble began, low, rolling, coming up from the tracks behind me. The ground vibrated. I dared to glance back. In the dim glow, the train car was moving of its own accord, slowly inching toward me. Its headlight pulsed green, as if breathing. The realization hit. It wasn't abandoned. It was hunting. I bolted. The tunnel curved, revealing a service ladder leading up to a grated hatch. I lunged for the rungs. Hands trembling, I climbed. Rungs slick with grime, heart hammering in my ears. At the top, I found a narrow maintenance corridor with old signage. Emergency exit. Arrow. Relief surged. I followed the corridor's glow, flickering fluorescent tubes overhead, until I reached a heavy steel door. I pushed, it creaked open. Bright, fluorescent lights strained my eyes as I spilled out into a maintenance bay. Tools hung on pegboards, service carts sat idle. But the train wasn't there. I glanced at a set of monitors on the far wall, live feeds of various platforms. Platform 13 blinked empty. No scheduled train. My reflection looked back, pale and wide-eyed. I keyed the radio. "I'm safe, I think." Static, then a whisper.
right in my ear. "You shouldn't have left the seat." I spun. No one. The monitors flickered. On one, I saw the train lying in wait at a dark track beyond the bay, its headlight cutting through the black. And then, every door slammed shut.
I pounded on every door in that maintenance bay. Steel echoed hollowly. No response. No handle gave way. The air tasted metallic. Each breath felt like swallowing shards of rust. Behind me, the train's distant hum pulsed through the floor. I spotted a narrow stairwell leading down. I crashed through the door and descended into a long service tunnel lit by flickering red lights. The walls here were lined with old utility rooms, electrical closets, cable junctions, most doors padlocked. One door hung ajar, paint peeling, and gauge needles frozen at 0. Inside, I found a narrow corridor lined with what looked like storage lockers, except each locker had a small, fog-smudged window and a label above, names I recognized from missing persons posters. Young faces stared back, children, commuters, a woman from last year's unsolved disappearance. My blood ran cold. I tried opening one, locked, but the next one slid open with a soft click. Inside lay a body, pale as plastic, curled in fetal position, eyes closed, lips stained with something dark. My stomach churned. I backed away, the floor slippery, damp footprints leading deeper. A distant metallic groan returned. I turned the corner into a larger room filled with these lockers, too many to count. I gasped as movement flickered at the far end, a single locker's window sliding open. I could almost see the outline of someone or something rising, tall, thin, too still to be alive. As I stumbled backward, my hand hit a control panel. A series of buttons labeled release. Panic hammering, I slammed one. A loud clang echoed as all lockers' doors sprang open simultaneously. The bodies collapsed in silent heaps. A rancid wave of rot filled the air. My flashlight flickered. In the brief darkness, I heard them stir, soft, wet noises. When light returned, the bodies were gone. The windows now showed empty darkness, like nothing had ever been inside. Then, in unison, every locker window locked back in place. The names, etched on brittle labels, blinked off. All that remained was the red glare overhead and the distant rumble of the HOOL train drawing nearer again. My radio crackled for the first time in minutes. "Controller, report status. We're losing you." I swallowed hard, whispering back, "I'm not safe down here." And somewhere beyond, metal scraped on concrete, closer than ever. My legs shook as I sprinted back toward the service tunnel's mouth, desperate for daylight. Every footstep echoed, now a pounding roar in my ears. But before I reached the stairwell, the tunnel lights sputtered out. I was swallowed in pitch black. I fumbled for my flashlight. The beam flickered on, slicing through the darkness to reveal the monster. It stood at the far end of the corridor, half shrouded in shadow. Its body was a grotesque fusion of metal and flesh. Twisted steel beams protruded like ribs, veins of rust-blackened flesh pulsed between the girders, and its elongated limbs ended in sharp, spiked fingers that scraped on the concrete. Its head tilted unnaturally, glowing green eyes locking onto mine. Fear buckled my knees. I backed away, but the creature moved with uncanny speed, each step silent, measured. A low mechanical growl vibrated through the corridor. I heard the train car's doors sliding open behind me. It must have followed. My heart thundered. Instinct took over. I darted left into a maintenance alcove, collapsing against a toolbox. My flashlight trembled as I watched the monster search the tunnel. It paused, sniffing the stale air as if tasting my fear. Then it turned toward the alcove, metallic claws scraping the wall. A blood-curdling hiss echoed off the ceiling. I held my breath. A single drop of water fell from a pipe above, striking the floor with a plink. And that was enough. The creature lunged. I dove out, rolling to my feet, and sprinted up the stairs toward platform 13's sealed exit. The monster crashed behind me, its clouds ripping into fresh concrete, catching me in its gaze for a final terrifying moment before I burst out onto the platform. The HOOLO train stood waiting, idling. Its doors slid open in welcome. Behind me, the creature's roar rattled the tiles, then faded into the subterranean abyss. I didn't hesitate. I leapt inside the train just as the doors closed, plunging me into darkness. The car's lights flickered on, revealing empty seats and polished floors. But the mirror by the door, once reflective, now showed not me, but the creature's glowing eyes staring back. A new radio message crackled. "Controller, the train's moving, without a driver. Brace for arrival." My pulse raced. The creature was outside. The only way forward was to ride, and hope the next stop wasn't my last.
The train jolted as soon as the door sealed, an almost imperceptible shudder that rattled my spine. The lights hummed back on, washing the car in cold white. I sank into a seat, breath coming in sharp bursts, staring at the door's mirror. The creature's eyes had vanished, but its presence lingered in every shadow. Outside, the tunnel walls rippled past in a blur. The train picked up speed without a driver, following tracks that I'd never seen on any map. My radio crackled. "Controller, train's moving. Automated override engaged. ETA, unknown." Unknown. That word tingled in my mind. I gripped the armrest until my knuckles turned white. A distant scream, faint, agonized, echoed through the car. I bolted upright. The seats behind me were empty, yet the scream had come from the next car. I edged toward the connecting door and pressed my ear to the glass. Silence. I opened it cautiously and peered into the next car. Flickering green lights revealed a single passenger, a woman in 1960s attire, eyes hollow, mouth stitched closed by coarse wire. She stared straight ahead, unmoving, a transit badge pinned to her coat. My stomach churned. I stumbled back and slammed the door. The train lurched, careening around a bend. The tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern, arches of ancient stone and dripping stalactites. Rail tracks branched into multiple directions, disappearing into darkness. The train jolted again, taking one branch, faster. I pressed myself into the seat, heart hammering. A loudspeaker crackled overhead. "Next stop, dead end." Dead end. The sign hung in midair outside the window, bright red letters that glowed against the cavern's black walls. I realized then the true horror. There were no stations beyond here, only oblivion. No escape. The train's whistle sounded, a bone-deep wail that rattled every bone in my body. As we crossed the threshold marked dead end, the green headlight outside the window snapped on, flashing into the car. The creature's face dominated the glass, twisted metal and flesh, jaws splitting apart. I braced for impact. Instead, the train gave one final lurch and came to rest. The door slid open into an endless platform of cracked concrete. No stairs, no ceilings, just a barren wasteland of shadow and echo. Behind me, the cars glided away, retracing their path into the darkness. I'm still here, alone on the last platform that shouldn't exist, facing the thing that hunts the rails.
They say once you ride the hollow train, you never really leave. If you survived this tale, you're braver than most. Subscribe for more true horror stories that lurk in the shadows of our world.